Hi guys and dolls, how are you? I hope you're well. So we're going to dive right in. For those of you who are subscribed, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're not subscribed, what you waiting on? It's free, doesn't cost a dime. And you know what? In today's day and age, free is affordable. All right, today we're going to talk about reactive abuse, what is it, and why abusers rely on it. This comes from breakthesilencedv.org. breakthesilencedv.org. Okay. And before I get started, I think that all of us who've been abused, we've dealt with narc abuse, or just somebody who's nuts, period. I don't care how nice you are, and this is what narcissists don't understand. I don't care how nice you are. Anybody can be driven to the point of, I've had enough of you, and I'll just have to go to jail because I'm just up to here with you. Anyone can be driven to that point, okay? I've been there. And, I believe in God, and I go to church, and, God's always been the pilot, and if I'm lucky, he lets me be the co-pilot. But I have, regardless, you won't hear too many people talk about this, especially if they love God. You're not going to hear them talk about it. They act like they've never lost their temper and they've never said a harsh word. That is not exactly true. And I have been driven to the point where I have wanted to kill that person. I've been driven to that point because I've had it with you and you just won't stop. And you keep pushing past my barriers and past my boundaries to the point where I just guess I'll have to go to jail. Okay? Anybody can be pushed to that point where you lose your damn mind. That's why some states have laws. I don't know what those laws are called, but they're basically, the laws pertain to, you basically snapped. You had so much abuse that you just couldn't take it anymore, and you ended up killing that person. I saw in a criminal document, a CJ book, criminal justice book, where they show all kinds of graphic things, okay? The guy was dead with his arm up in the air. She shot him. She was tired of him. He had a knife in his hand. His hand was up. His arm was up in the air. And he was on his knees, frozen like that. On his knees, frozen, dead like that. Because she'd had enough and she shot him and he died instantly. And he died the way he was coming at her. People get sick of it. And narcissists think that when you're so nice and you're so sweet, you wouldn't hurt a fly. And then when you flip to the crazy page, I think for some of them, depending on how far you go, they kind of laugh at it. But I think if you go way further than they thought you would, they're like, but in the back of their mind, they're like, oh my God, you're crazy. And sometimes they even say that, you're crazy. You push that person to that point, what did you think was going to happen? They're going to bake you brownies? Don't live in a fantasy world. So anyway, reactive abuse occurs when the victim reacts to the abuse they are experiencing. The victim may scream, toss out insults, or even lash out physically at the abuser. The abuser then retaliates by telling the victim that they are in fact the abuser. I'm the innocent victim and you've just snapped on me for no reason. Right? No, that's a lie. Why abusers rely on it? Abusers rely on this reactive abuse because it is their proof, quotation marks, that the victim is unstable and mentally ill. The abuser will hold these reactions against the victims indefinitely. It could be years later, and the abuser will say, well, back in whatever year it was, you had this reaction and acted all crazy. You're the crazy one. You need help. Sometimes abusers use this reaction as an excuse to go to police or even file for protective orders of their own. To manipulate is to unfairly influence a situation. When an abuser claims they are the ones being abused, they are manipulating us into believing we are at fault for their abuse. The abusers are conditioning and manipulating us to accept the blame. The longer this blame shifting goes on, the longer we will believe that we are to blame for the reactive outburst and abuse that the abuser is dishing out. We will begin to believe we are the violent and unstable ones. I didn't believe that with my ex-fiance, Mr. Churchgoer, Mr. I'm a holy man, Mr. I sing for the church and I play the organ. Some of the worst demons are in church, truth be told. I got to the point, he never hit me, but he liked to grab my shirt and shove it up against my throat. And I got to the point, he'd have these psychotic rages. And I got to the point where I casually said, first of all, if I'm screaming and yelling at you, you're still good. When I get quiet and calm, you better go to another state, another country, and change your identity because you're this close. And I looked at him. I was at the end of my rope with him. And I looked at him and I said, I could take your life and it wouldn't bother me at all. And I was serious. And I had images of me stabbing him to death and him being dead on my living room floor. I had those images in my mind. People get to the point where they've had enough of you. Okay? You're going to put your hands on them one time too many. You're going to throw yourself into a rage one time too many. And the person's going to do something drastic because they've had it. They're done with it. Okay? Anybody can be driven to that point. I don't care how sweet you are and how nice you are and how you never raised your voice. Anybody can be pushed to the breaking point. That's why it's really imperative that you get away from this psycho. Okay? Because they will play victim, cry, physically hurt themselves. Some people I've known to do that, known of them to do that, give themselves a black eye and say you did it and you end up going to jail. Meanwhile, they started this whole thing. I mean, it's just disaster waiting to happen. You've got to get away from this person. They're not worth you going to jail. Okay? They'll never do it again. They'll never put their hands on someone again. But it's not worth going to jail. Anyway, the manipulation could go as far as to cause us to feel shame when we react. It causes the abuser to claim we are the abusive ones, but these reactions also add a second element to the mix. They cause us to feel bad about ourselves to the point of guilt and shame. By the way, I felt no guilt and no shame. If I take you out, I'm done. Okay, so I told myself, I've got to get out of this situation. You're not worth me going to jail. I just can't do it anymore. So I didn't have guilt or shame. I could have took him right out. And maybe one day someone will be pushed to that point with him because he's never going to stop. According to domesticshelters.org, mutual abuse is when both partners are equally abusive to one another. Many survivors often ask themselves if they are abusive too because of how they react. But the truth is that mutual abuse is very rare. And many experts don't believe it exists. The power and control dynamics involved in domestic violence would make it nearly impossible for both partners to be abusive. The key word is react. That's the difference between reactive abuse and mutual abuse. Victims and survivors react to the abuse doled out by the abuser. So like I said, you shouldn't feel guilty if you start having crazy thoughts in your head, but that's a warning. You see their dead body laying on the living room floor, for example, that's your sign to get away from this person. They're not worth it. It's just not worth it. And they will take you to the point where you take the crystal vase off the table and you chuck it at their head. You've never raised your voice before. You will get pushed to the crazy point. And it doesn't mean that you're the demon, they're the demon, and you've had enough. I don't advocate violence, but I could see why people would be pushed to that point. Because I was almost pushed to that point on more than one occasion with different people. There was another person, I could have easily taken him out. And I'm not into guns, but I could see myself blowing his head off. I'm just keeping it real. I'm just saying that's why there's laws in place, depending on the state that you're in. There's laws to protect a woman in particular because she finally had enough and snapped. Some of you may be aware of those laws depending on the state. Not all states have that where, you snapped and you're protected by law because the law understands that you just went nuts because you'd had enough. But yeah, he was cocky. He was arrogant. This is another person that I knew. They're everywhere. I was crying and I was really upset about something, and he laid on the bed with his fingers interlaced behind his head, like watching TV with that look on his face. And I thought to myself, after I'd had enough, I thought, if I blow his brains out and he's laying on the ground dying and gurgling in blood, and that's what I saw in my head, I would stand over his dying body and say, "You ain't so cocky now, are ya?" You come out of your normal personality. You become someone different. You just get to that page, and thank God I left him and didn't have to go to jail behind him either. But yeah, while he was dying, I would have this image in my head that I'd stand over him and say, "You ain't so cocky now." Okay? People get to that point. When you see yourself reacting in this manner, many times you begin to say to yourself, "Whoa, this isn't me. This isn't how I am normally." When you begin to ask yourself these questions, you know something is not right with the relationship. Well, yeah. I know, I know how I was reacting wasn't me. It's not who I am. This is what the abuser wants, for you to completely get out of your character and your integrity. And many times, by the time we get to the point of asking ourselves these questions, we're either too scared to leave the abuser, or we just don't have the means to do so. So what do we do instead? The abusers bank on us reacting negatively to their antics. When we begin to truly think about how we respond to them, we are taking back our power. We begin to respond and not react. To react is almost like an automatic thing. It's the fight or flight response. But responding involves a thought process that requires us to really consider our thoughts and actions. You have to have the power of critical thinking. My hair is tickling my eyes. But you have to have the power of critical thinking, meaning, if I do this, what will happen? If I took his life, I will be protecting any woman that has the misfortune of meeting him, but I will also get locked up. Is he worth it? No. Absolutely no. A lot of you that have been abused have been through this. You are totally out of your character, completely somebody that you don't even recognize. So the abuser would like us to believe, well, we were abusive to each other. It's mutual abuse. It's because the abuser will never accept responsibility for their actions and instead shift the blame for the abuse onto us. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, there is help. You can visit the Break the Silence website at breakthesilencedv.org or chat with one of our helpline advocates at 855-287-1777. They rely on you acting like a lunatic. When you call and you leave messages, 100 messages, on their phone, you text 100 times, "You son of a bitch, you cheated on me, I found her underwear," blah, and the person will ignore you, and they're laughing. And like I said, they're showing their friends or their family, "Look at this crazy bat. Didn't I tell you she was nuts? Look at my phone. Look how many times this person, I told you she was crazy. I'm the innocent one. She's nuts. She's psychotic." And other people who have not seen this person act straight up fool will believe that you have lost your marbles and the abuser is the innocent one. They manipulate every single person who's involved in the scenario. That's why it's good to have recordings of how they truly talk to you. Document everything they do when they've snapped. But recordings are really, really good because their family a lot of times they've never seen that side of them. So they would be convinced that you are the nutty one. My brother, my nephew, my uncle, my whoever has never even killed a fly. So you're saying that he's abusive. I think you're the abusive one until they see proof. When they say proof and they hear how nasty they talk to you and their voice is dripping with acid, then they will get an idea of, oh, wow. Whoa. Or if they're in denial, they will think, well, yeah, you're the psychotic one and you pushed him past his boundaries. So of course he snapped. Those are flying monkeys who will defend the abuser. And you wonder why he's an abuser, because he comes from a family of lunatics, or the woman comes from a family of lunatics. That happens too. I talked to a guy online years ago, and I hope to God he got away from her. He was married and he was looking for a place to stay, a roommate or a friend, or stay with somebody. She was not only nasty and abusive, but she was getting to the point where she was physically abusive to him and verbally abusive to him in front of family and friends, and didn't care. I don't care who sees me. I'll go right upside your head. I don't care. What you gonna do about it? And I said, you need to get away from her as fast as humanly possible. When they get to the point where they're not even going to pretend in front of other people, because normally abusers pretend in front of an audience that they're the nicest person in the world. Some people are so damn ignorant, they'll do it in front of anybody, and they really don't care who knows that they're nuts. Those people are past the point of no return, and any narcissist is past the point of no return anyway. But they're not even going to try to front. And a lot of narcissists do try to pretend. They put on that political smile, say everything that everybody wants to hear. And then behind closed doors, they're a monster. But some people are so disordered and so disturbed in their head, they don't care who's there. Or the abuse has escalated to that point where they don't care. And I told him, you better get away from her as fast as possible, because she could hurt you or worse. So reactive abuse, it's a real thing. You're reacting to the abuse, and when you snap, they play the victim to everybody and tell them, look what this crazy bat did. Oh my God, I was sitting there watching TV, minding my business, and she just lost her mind. Right. Or he lost his mind, or whatever it is. It could happen both ways, men or women. It doesn't matter. As I've said 100 times, it is not gender specific. Anybody can be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay. So reactive abuse, it's a real thing. All right. You guys take care. Love you.